At my anniversary party, Sil told everyone she was going to have a baby, even though she knew I've been trying really hard to have one too. Now her husband is leaving her because of it, and she's asking me for help. I'm a 27-year-old woman who has been trying to get pregnant for almost 8 months, but it hasn't happened yet. My husband and I have decided to get fertility tests in a few weeks because we're nervous but know it's time to find out what's going on. We've been together for 6 years and married for 3. I've always wanted to be a mom, and my husband feels the same way. This seemed like the perfect time to try for a baby, but it's not working out, which is really frustrating. We've tried everything from medicines to home remedies, and both of us have been really stressed out for the past couple of months. We celebrated our wedding anniversary with a big party a few days ago, hoping it would distract us from our worries about not being able to conceive. Unfortunately, things went wrong, mainly because of my sister-in-law, Jenny, who's 25. Jenny got married a few months ago in a grand ceremony. She's a bit of a show-off and acts superior, but I've never had issues with her or anyone in my husband's family. This is the first time we're having problems, and it feels strange and uncomfortable. Jenny and I were never close friends, but we got along fine. However, what happened at the anniversary party changed everything, and now I don't think I can see her or my in-laws the same way. For context, my husband's family didn't know we were trying for a baby. We wanted to tell them, but after a few unsuccessful months, we decided to wait until we had good news. My parents didn't know either. Only a couple of my friends knew, but they were busy with their own lives, so I couldn't really turn to them for advice or talk about our struggles with conceiving. A few days ago, Jenny and her husband were visiting us. Our husbands went out to the garden because I had mentioned that the sprinklers needed fixing, and Jenny's husband, being handy, offered to help. This left me and Jenny alone in the room. I tried making small talk, but she directly asked me why I seemed so upset. She said she could tell something was bothering me and wanted me to share it with her. I hesitated and tried to brush it off, but I had been really down after yet another negative pregnancy test and couldn't hide it well. Jenny kept insisting that I tell her what was wrong because she wanted to help. Even though my husband and I had agreed not to tell anyone until we were actually pregnant, I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. I was feeling very emotional and needed to talk to someone. I couldn't keep bringing it up with my husband because he was going through the same thing, and constantly discussing it would just make us both feel worse. So I decided to tell Jenny the truth. When Jenny asked me what was wrong, I decided to tell her the truth, that my husband and I were trying to have a baby. I was desperate to share my feelings and didn't think about the consequences. Jenny seemed genuinely happy for me and even hugged me, saying she was excited about the possibility of having a baby niece or nephew. I then told her about our struggles and how it was affecting us, which was why I looked so upset that day. She seemed sympathetic and even offered to take me to a fertility specialist. I thanked her for the offer but explained that I just needed someone to talk to, and I appreciated her being so supportive. Our husbands were in the garden for about half an hour, and during that time, Jenny and I had a real conversation. It felt good to talk to her because she seemed to genuinely understand and was trying her best to be empathetic. By the time my husband came back and we had to drop the topic, I felt much better. When they were leaving, Jenny gave me a hug, which she usually doesn't do, and it felt nice to have someone to talk to. We didn't talk for the next couple of days until she came over on the day of our anniversary party, which was 2 days ago. When she arrived, she was very nice to me. She hugged me again and gave us a gift. I thought we were finally becoming friends, but that feeling didn't last long. My husband and I had invited a lot of people to the party, including our family and friends. It was a great distraction from our worries about babies and pregnancy. We were chatting, laughing, and having a generally fun time. About an hour into the party, Jenny and her husband walked to the middle of the room and said they had an announcement to make. My husband looked confused and I froze, fearing she might reveal what I had told her. But it was worse than I imagined. Her husband announced that they had found out a week ago that they were pregnant and would become parents in 9 months. Everyone started clapping and cheering for them, and my husband's family went up to congratulate her while the two of us stood quietly in a corner. Before I knew it, tears started flowing down my face, and I ran to the restroom. My husband saw me crying and followed, but I didn't let him in because I needed a few minutes to myself to calm down and avoid making a scene in front of our guests. I was trying to process everything while my husband stood outside the door, reassuring me that everything would be fine. He said it would happen for us eventually, and even if it didn't, we'd explore other options and get through it together. His comforting words made me feel better, so I let him in. I told him that Jenny knew about our struggles, but he didn't react and said we could discuss it later. His main concern was if I was okay, and everything else could wait. We stood there hugging each other quietly for a few minutes, which helped me recover from the shock. By the time we came back out, people had finished congratulating Jenny, and the attention shifted back to us. Apparently everyone had been looking for us, so when we reappeared in the living room, all eyes were on us. This wasn't ideal because I had been crying, and it showed. I had tried to fix my face, but my mascara had run while I was crying, and I couldn't clean it all off before coming back out. As soon as people saw me, they started asking questions. I told everyone I was all right and just felt overwhelmed, which is why I needed a break. It was a weak excuse, but I had to say something to get them off my back. My husband and I then went up to Jenny and her husband to congratulate them. Jenny looked upset but didn't say anything, and we continued with the party. It was difficult, but I think my husband and I tried our best to handle the situation with dignity and grace. Despite my emotional breakdown after Jenny's announcement, I didn't let it ruin the evening or the overall success of the event. My husband and I discussed everything after the guests had left and we were in bed. I told him that I had confided in Jenny about our attempts to get pregnant during her visit, and I felt it was insensitive of her to make this announcement at our anniversary party, knowing we were struggling and trying to distract ourselves. He agreed with me, saying that even if I hadn't told her about our struggles before the party, she still shouldn't have made the announcement on our wedding anniversary. This day was supposed to be about us, and it was inconsiderate of her to make it about herself without even asking for our permission first. That was a valid point as well. While discussing this, we realized that Jenny already knew she was pregnant when she was counseling me because they had found out a week before the party. We concluded that her announcement at our anniversary party was a deliberate move, but we couldn't understand why she would want to hurt me. We weren't best friends, but we had never been on bad terms. My husband and I decided we had to confront Jenny about this. We knew there were only two possible outcomes. She could apologize and we could clear the air, or we would have to cut her off. Yesterday we decided to call Jenny after work to talk about what happened. However, before we could, we received a call from his parents asking us to come over immediately for a family meeting. They said it was urgent, so we took a day off work to find out what was going on. When we arrived at his parents' place, everyone was already there. His parents, his grandma, Jenny, and her husband. The atmosphere was tense, and it felt like we had walked into a courtroom where the jury had already decided we were guilty. Jenny was avoiding eye contact with us, which I found strange. Then my husband's parents started talking, and everything began to make sense. They said that at the party they noticed my husband and I were the only ones who left the room after Jenny announced her pregnancy and didn't return for a long time. They'd also mentioned that when I did congratulate Jenny and her husband, it didn't seem genuine or sincere. I could tell they were accusing me of something, and I didn't appreciate it. Still, I explained my behavior. My husband and I told them we'd been trying to get pregnant for a long time without success, and we were frustrated. Jenny's announcement was the last straw for us because the anniversary party was supposed to distract us from thinking about pregnancy. But when Jenny announced her pregnancy, all our emotions came rushing back, and I felt overwhelmed. I had to leave the room because I started crying and didn't want anyone to see me break down. I thought this explanation was valid and that they couldn't argue with it. There was silence for a while, and my husband and I hoped they would ask about our decision to have a baby or say something positive, but they didn't react to our news. Instead, they continued discussing our reaction to Jenny's announcement. After the brief pause, my mother-in-law said she could understand that I was upset, but as an adult, I had to learn how to regulate and control my emotions. She said my behavior at the party was unacceptable. I didn't see anything wrong with how I acted, and I felt we handled it well when we returned to the living room. We congratulated Jenny and her husband gracefully, thinking that would be enough. My husband and I argued with them, saying there was nothing wrong with our behavior. We also pointed out that anyone in our situation might have reacted worse, maybe even asking Jenny and her husband to leave for making the day about themselves. I mentioned that Jenny knew about our struggles before the party and still chose to make the announcement, despite knowing what we were going through. So if anyone should be held accountable, it's her, not us, because she's the one who made the announcement in the wrong place. The argument escalated when Jenny joined in, portraying herself as the victim and claiming she hoped her news would make us feel better. Her parents supported her, insisting she was trying to be nice, and we needed to apologize. The situation turned chaotic with shouting and accusations. His mother even accused me of stealing Jenny's spotlight on purpose out of jealousy. She claimed I threw a tantrum for attention and sympathy at the party. This hurt me deeply, and my husband was also upset. He said if they believed such things about me, we might be better off cutting ties with them. After the argument, we returned home still discussing what had happened and feeling frustrated by Jenny's attempts to play the victim despite her wrongdoing. We didn't expect to hear from them for a while, but Jenny messaged my husband expressing hurt and disappointment at our behavior. She claimed she only wanted to make us feel better with her announcement and didn't intend to upset us. Jenny said she was surprised that I took it so hard and started crying just because she was pregnant. She believed it was a reason for everyone to be happy and wanted to share that happiness. She felt insulted and partly agreed with her mother that I stole her spotlight because anniversaries happen yearly, but she can only announce her first pregnancy once. She felt I should have been happy for her and understood her intentions instead of being self-centered about my struggles. I'm not sure how to feel about crying and leaving the room when my sister-in-law announced her pregnancy. Update 1. Thanks to everyone who commented and reached out to support us. I know pregnancy can be tough, and struggling to get pregnant is something many people deal with. It's comforting to hear stories from others who went through the same thing. Motherhood is beautiful, and I'll love my baby whether I get pregnant myself or choose surrogacy or adoption. What matters is that our child will be loved and cared for. We're getting tested tomorrow to figure out what to do next, so wish us luck. As for the situation with my husband's family, there hasn't been any improvement. But after reading the comments, my husband and I know we're not to blame, so we don't need to apologize. If they want to stay in touch, it's up to Jenny to apologize. I personally think they all owe us an apology for how they treated us at their house. It was really unfair for them to accuse us when we were the ones hurt by the situation. Just thinking about it makes me want to call them and tell them off for saying such awful things. It's only been 2 days, so maybe they're waiting for us to reach out first. I wasn't surprised by Jenny's actions, but I didn't expect her parents to act the same way. It was a shock for my husband too because they've never behaved like this before. They'd always treated my husband and Jenny equally, so it's strange that they're now favoring Jenny over him. It's possible that my husband's reaction, not congratulating his sister right away, upset his family. But that's just a theory. Many of you asked about my parents' thoughts on this, and honestly, they didn't have much to say. We're not as close as my husband's family, so their response was limited. They agreed that what Jenny did wasn't right and offered their sympathy, but there wasn't much more to discuss about it. I had talked to them the day after the party when they asked why I had been upset, and they comforted me briefly, saying they were there for me. However, we all knew they were busy with work and couldn't be there as much as I might have needed. That's been the case since I was young, which is why I'm not as close to them now. This is also why I'm so eager to have my own family. I want to do it right and give my children the support I missed out on. I used to be sad about my relationship with my parents, but I've gotten used to it now. We do care about each other, but we're not very close as a family. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Update 2. Jenny contacted my husband today. He was at work and couldn't answer her call, so she sent a text saying she needed to talk urgently. She suggested meeting near his workplace for coffee after he finished work. My husband shared the text with me, and when he finished work, I drove to his workplace. He called me, and we went to meet Jenny together, even though she had asked to talk to him alone. She didn't seem happy to see me but didn't say anything. We ordered coffee and waited for her to start the conversation, as we had decided not to initiate it. After an awkward silence for about 5 minutes, Jenny gave in and apologized for what happened. She didn't seem sincere in her apology at all. Instead of waiting for us to respond or acknowledge her apology, she quickly shifted the conversation. She told us that after our argument at her parents' house, her husband realized that she hadn't actually asked me for permission to announce their pregnancy at our anniversary party. He believed Jenny had already checked with me about it, based on what she had told him. But after our fight, he saw the truth and felt uneasy about her lie. He was the only one who saw through the situation and felt uncomfortable with it. When they got home, he confronted Jenny about her lie. Her husband had learned the truth. Jenny admitted she hadn't asked me if announcing her pregnancy at our party was okay. She assumed it wouldn't upset me because it was supposed to be a happy announcement. However, her husband didn't buy it. He knew Jenny was aware of my struggles before the party, so he believed she knew it wouldn't make me happy. They argued, and her husband accused her of announcing it at our party on purpose to hurt me more. He believed she lied about having my consent to make things worse for me. Hearing this from Jenny was satisfying because it felt like someone finally saw through her actions. However, that wasn't the main reason she met with us. Her husband had decided he wouldn't talk to her or forgive her until we forgave her, and he left that day and hadn't returned despite her attempts to contact him. He made it clear he wouldn't communicate with her until we forgave her. So as a last resort, she came to us, pleading for forgiveness and asking us to tell her husband about it. My husband and I didn't feel proud of what we did next, but we felt it was necessary. We laughed at her and told her she deserved this because she intentionally hurt us after pretending to be my friend. We weren't going to forgive her for an apology she didn't truly mean. My husband said her husband was right to stay away from her because someone as cruel and heartless as her shouldn't be a parent. She tried to manipulate us by crying, but we didn't buy it. Her family didn't care when I was upset, so now we didn't care about her tears either. I knew where we stood with them, and it was time for them to understand their place in our lives too. We returned home and didn't dwell on it. We're unsure about their future, but I hope her husband files for divorce and gains full custody of their child. Trust me, that would be best for the child. Update 3. Hello Reddit community. I forgot to mention in my last update that we received our test results and fortunately, neither my husband nor I have fertility issues. This news is a relief as I was starting to worry. We'll keep trying and aim to be less stressed about it moving forward, focusing on the joy of it all. It seems we were too stressed initially. On another note, Jenny and her husband are getting divorced now. It appears they had other issues and he's seeking full custody. Her parents, however, blame me for their problems, which is unfortunate but something we'll manage. My husband and I have decided to completely break off contact with them. We block them on all platforms so they can't contact us. We've also informed our family that we won't attend events where they'll be present, and we explained why. Most people support our decision and won't invite them because of what happened. It's sad, but they caused this situation themselves, and there's not much we can do about it now.